Rosalind Franklin's life is one of the greatest proofs that failure is not the opposite of success, but the very foundation of it. For her journey was not one of privilege or smooth recognition, but of tireless struggle, rejection, and perseverance in the face of doubt. And yet through storms of obstacles, she carved her name into history as one of the most brilliant scientific minds of the 20th century. Born in London in 1920 into a respected Jewish family, Rosalind showed brilliance from a young age, excelling in academics with a sharp mind and relentless determination. But she faced a society that often doubted whether women could ever belong in the halls of science, a society that placed invisible walls between her and her dreams. And though she excelled at St. Paul's Girls' School, mastering mathematics and science with a focus that startled her teachers, she knew from an early age that every step forward would mean pushing against resistance. For while her brothers would be expected to pursue professions, her ambitions as a girl in science were seen as out of place, a pursuit few encouraged. Yet she pressed on, refusing to let stereotypes dictate her destiny. And at Cambridge University, she studied natural sciences, specializing in physical chemistry, immersing herself in long hours of study and research while hearing whispers that women were unsuited for such rigorous intellectual pursuits. Enduring professors who underestimated her, colleagues who dismissed her, opportunities that were limited simply because of her gender. And still, Franklin pressed forward with unshakable determination, believing that persistence could turn rejection into progress. Her years at Cambridge were not easy, for she constantly had to prove herself worthy of being there. And though she graduated with honors, the academic world did not roll out a red carpet for her. Instead, it seemed as though every door she knocked on closed before it could open. Fellowships denied, opportunities scarce. And while others of her generation moved into stable academic paths, Franklin's early career was a patchwork of struggle, rejection, and small victories that she fought tooth and nail to earn. And yet each closed door only sharpened her resolve, for she knew that knowledge itself had no gender, that truth could not be limited by prejudice, and that failure was not a wall but a stepping stone. After Cambridge, she faced further struggles when trying to establish herself as a researcher, often working with inadequate facilities, facing dismissals of her early applications, and struggling to be taken seriously in circles dominated by men who believed science was not the place for women. But she refused to give up, seizing an opportunity to work in Paris at the Laboratoire Central des Services Chimiques de l'État, where she trained in X-ray crystallography, the art of using X-rays to reveal the hidden structures of matter. And though at first her work was full of errors, failures, and long nights of experiments that seemed to yield nothing, she kept pushing, refining her methods, often repeating experiments dozens of times, learning to endure the frustrations of failure while slowly mastering a technique that few in the world understood. And in Paris, she found not only technical training but also a sense of freedom. For here her colleagues treated her more as an equal than in England, encouraging her precision, respecting her determination, and allowing her to flourish into one of the most skilled crystallographers of her generation. Yet even as she advanced, rejection haunted her, for when she returned to London in 1951 to take a position at King's College, she encountered not open collaboration but rivalry and exclusion. Assigned to study DNA at a time when its structure was one of the greatest scientific mysteries, but instead of being welcomed into a team, she was belittled by certain male colleagues, treated as an outsider, and dismissed as difficult simply because she demanded respect. Her meticulousness ridiculed as arrogance, her insistence on accuracy viewed as stubbornness rather than brilliance. And yet Franklin pressed forward with the same determination that had carried her from childhood, pouring her soul into her X-ray diffraction studies of DNA, working in a cold basement laboratory with outdated equipment that she nonetheless coaxed into producing images of extraordinary clarity. Her precision and tireless work culminating in the creation of what became known as Photo 51, a breathtaking X-ray image that revealed the unmistakable signature of a helical structure, a glimpse into the very code of life itself. And though her work represented a breakthrough, history records how her findings were taken without her consent. For in 1953, her colleague Maurice Wilkins, with whom she had a strained relationship, showed the famous Photo 51 to James Watson without Franklin's knowledge, providing Watson and his collaborator Francis Crick the key evidence they needed to finalize their double helix model of DNA. And while they published their model to worldwide acclaim, receiving recognition that culminated in the Nobel Prize, Franklin's name was absent, her contribution acknowledged only in a footnote, her years of meticulous labor overshadowed by the sudden glory of others. Betrayal of this magnitude might have broken another person, for to have one's greatest discovery taken, one's work used without permission, and one's place in history stolen is enough to crush the strongest spirit. Yet Rosalind Franklin did not let bitterness consume her. She did not stop. She did not retreat into silence. Instead, she moved forward to other scientific frontiers, focusing her extraordinary skills on the structures of viruses such as the tobacco mosaic virus and the polio virus, pioneering research that would later aid the development of vaccines and deepen humanity's understanding of molecular biology. And though she continued to face rejection, continued to work in a world reluctant to give her credit, she persevered with the same persistence that had defined her entire life. But there came a breaking point that no determination could fully overcome. For in 1956, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer at the age of just 37, a devastating blow at the peak of her intellectual powers. And though she underwent surgeries and endured harsh treatments, her passion for science did not waver. She continued to work, to publish, to inspire, even as her strength declined, collaborating with colleagues, mentoring young scientists, and producing groundbreaking papers almost until her final days, refusing to allow illness to steal her contribution, showing the same resilience in the face of mortality that she had always shown in the face of rejection. Yet on April 16, 1958, at the age of 37, Rosalind Franklin's life came to a premature end. Her brilliant career cut short just as the world was beginning to realize the magnitude of her genius. And though her death seemed at first to seal her fate as a footnote overshadowed by the fame of Watson, Crick, and Wilkins, history has since corrected itself. For today, she is remembered not as an assistant, not as an overlooked contributor, but as one of the true pioneers of molecular biology, the woman whose vision and persistence illuminated the structure of DNA, whose failures were the soil from which fortune grew, and whose name now shines as a beacon for every woman in science, every dreamer underestimated, every soul told you cannot. Her story proves that rejection cannot bury truth, that betrayal cannot silence legacy, and that failure cannot erase brilliance. For though she never received the Nobel Prize in her lifetime, her recognition today is far greater than any medal. Her name now immortalized in research institutes, scholarships, books, and the collective memory of humanity as the scientist who refused to give up. And so her life stands as a call to every dreamer who has been underestimated, to every woman who has been told she does not belong, to every scientist who has faced endless nights of failure and rejection, reminding them that success is not about instant recognition, but about perseverance, not about applause in the moment, but about the impact one leaves behind. For Rosalind Franklin's life teaches us that rejection is not the end, but the beginning, that failure is not final, but the very pathway to greatness, and that persistence is the bridge between struggle and triumph, proving once and for all that persistence turns failure into fortune.